Hey everyone, thank you for checking out this site and taking time to check out this video. I'm just going to take a quick moment here to tell you a little bit more about how Rachel and I came to make the decision to move to Chicago and to be a part of Mission Church. Well, it started on a Thursday night after a band practice that Tommy Bowen was leading for Restore Community Church, where I served as a drummer. And after the practice was over, he asked the band to come into a room where we could sit down. And he wanted to tell us something that was going on with the church. So we all didn't really know what was going on, but we thought, hey, well, let's go and see what Tommy wants to talk to us about. So Tommy started talking about how he had been called to go to Chicago to plant this church called Mission Church with a friend of his, John Peacock. Him and John both grew up in the Chicago area, and it has been their dream since they were kids to plant a church in their area that would be very missional, and just be very focused on their community and making an impact in the area where they grew up. So he started talking to us about that, and my mind was going a million miles per hour, and I was just trying to figure out what this meant for me, or if it even meant anything for me, as far as how I was gonna be missing a guy who I'd become close to in my time at Restore, and I really enjoyed playing with as a musician in the band, and just had enjoyed serving with my time there. So I was having all these thoughts run through my head, and just trying to figure out what exactly was what it meant for me and Rachel. And so as all this is going on, Tommy just at the end of talking about this, he said, "Hey guys, I just want to take a minute to pray about this situation and pray about the leading of this ministry at Restore, and how it's going to be led in the future, since they haven't hired somebody yet." So he's just talking about praying about that, and he asked us if we would just all bow our heads. So of course we all bowed our heads, and as I'm sitting there, he's just talking, he's praying through about Restore, but he's also praying about mission. And I'm just sitting there listening and taking this all in, and being in that moment. Also, I just felt like I heard the word like go. It just kept going through my mind, like go, 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 go. And I'm like, go, like what does that mean? And so I'm just like, okay, well, it probably means I'm going to help Tommy go. I'm going to support him, and just financially or through prayer, or any other way I can. But I didn't really think it meant me physically moving to Chicago. So I just kind of had all that thought run through my head, and so he ended the prayer time, and we said goodbye and walked out the door. And Rachel happened to be with me that evening, as sometimes she would come and listen to us practice for the weeks leading up to or for the Sunday practices. So we were in there, and we get in the car on the way back, and I was like, well, don't know if I should really share this with Rachel right now, the whole thing about going. And I told her what Tommy had shared with us, but didn't really tell her how I was feeling or what I had thought, for a couple of reasons. The first reason was because I didn't really know what it meant for me, and I didn't really know if it meant what that going meant. And then also, I didn't want it to be a spontaneous reaction. I felt like if this was something that God really wanted me to be a part of, then God would make that more clear to me in the future. So I just talked to her about that, and kind of we threw back ideas of what it would mean for us as a family, and how we would go through that transition time. And so that went on, and we drove home, and when we got home, went about our days for the rest of the week. And I actually text messaged Tommy, and I said, hey man, I really would like to sit down maybe with you next week and just talk to you about more about Chicago and what's going on there. And I said, I just have something I want to share with you. And he said, okay. So I didn't really he didn't really think anything of it, I'm sure. And so we go in the next week, and we sit down at a restaurant, and just sitting there talking. He's just sharing me what's been going on with him, and the transition, and how he's excited about it and nervous about it at the same time. So we're going through that whole conversation, and I felt like I should tell him, hey man, this is what I felt. And I said, I don't really know what it means. I don't know what that whole going thing means, but I feel like there might be something here for me. I said, but I said, I just want to ask you to do me a favor. He said, sure. What is it? I said, would you just commit for the next 4 weeks to praying about this with me? Would you just pray that for just clarity on what we're supposed to do, if we're supposed to do anything, and what this really means for Rachel and for me. So he said, yeah, no doubt that he would definitely do that. And I just asked him one more thing. I said, would you please just not tell Rachel about it? And he goes, well, what do you mean? I said, well, I believe that if this is something that God really wants for Rachel and that I believe that he'll make that evident to her. I said, that it'd be completely out of the norm. And I said that would just give me more confirmation than anything that God was not only calling me but calling us to something so much greater in the Chicagoland. And also, I'll be real honest with you. I was really comfortable in my job. It was a new job I had gotten about 4 months ago, and it was finally a job that I felt like could be a career. It could be something that was, I could settle into and maybe see myself doing that for 10 years. And, I think that it's interesting that, in my most comfortable time was a time that God brought this uncomfortable vision of Chicago for me and for Rachel. And so, anyways, without saying anything more about that, I just, I asked, hey, please, pray with me about this. And I said, I'm not going to bring it up to Rachel. I'm not going to say anything to her about it. I'm not going to say one word about Chicago. And I said, but if this is something that God wants to happen for us, I want it to be something that she comes to me with the idea, and I want it to be clear that this is something that God has laid on her heart. So the next 4 weeks happen. I don't say anything about what's been going on in my heart, and just constantly, and that those 4 weeks that went by, we were doing a message series. I just remember that we talked about like prayer and having things being confirmed through prayer, and how we could look at the Word and figure out whether they were things from God. And I'm like, okay, this is like blowing me away with how real this really is to me, that this is something that God really has for us. And I said, but I committed with Tommy that I'm going to pray about it for 4 weeks. I have him pray about it for 4 weeks. And if this is something that God wants for us, I believe that he'll give the same feeling to Rachel, and that he'll really confirm that through Rachel. So anyways, after those 4 weeks were over, we had a night that was going to be an informational night for Mission Church, where Tommy was going to cast the vision of what it meant for him to move to Chicago, and how he was going to ask for people to support him financially and in prayer, and just tell people about the strategy behind what they're going to do with Mission Church. And so I had planned on attending that just to support Tommy and Jess as they were in their move to Chicago, and it wasn't something that Rachel had planned on supporting. Or at least I didn't know that at the time. So it came down to the night that we were supposed to leave to go to the info night, and Rachel said, "Hey Luke, I happen to get off work tonight, and I would really love to go with you to this info night for Tommy and Jess." And I said, "Oh, okay. Well, sure. Come on, let's go." And so we ended up going together, and the whole time thinking, okay, I'm not going to read too much into this, and we're just, I'm sure she just wants to spend time with me. It's nothing big. Trying to downplay everything. But anyways, to go through the whole info night, at the end of the info night, it comes to a time where, it's a response time, and Tommy has a card, and there's 3 boxes on the card. And it says, will you commit to supporting us financially, praying for us, or going with us? And so there's those 3 boxes, and each individual person got their own card, and then you just check it, and then you turn it in at the end of the night. So I checked, we would support Tommy and Jess financially, and then also that we would pray along with them. And turn my card in, and obviously I really wanted to check 3, but I didn't really know if that was really what God had for us at the time. And so at the end of the night ended. Rachel turned in her card, I turned in my card, and I just waited. I waited to see what was going to happen. So as soon as we get in the car, it's almost like Rachel couldn't even wait for me to even start the car before she asked me the question. She said, "Luke, how many boxes did you check?" And I said, "Well, 2, babe." I checked, pray for them and give them money. And she said, Okay. I said, how many did you check, babe? And she said, well, I checked 2, but I really wanted to check 3. And I was like, you wanted to check 3? And so then I started, I'll be honest, I started playing devil's advocate to like what she was about to tell me, and because I knew she was going to say something about going, and so she said, I really feel like we should go, and I was like, well, why? And then so Rachel, if you know Rachel, anything about her, she's a very spontaneous, loving, fun, adventurous person, and so it wasn't really a surprise to me that she said that she felt like we should go. But then what really surprised me was what she said next to me. She really talked about how she had all this planned out, how this has been on her mind for the last 4 weeks. She couldn't go to work. She couldn't do anything without really feeling that this burden for Chicago. And she's like, everything I did, just Chicago came up. Chicago, Chicago, Chicago. And just thinking about what it would be for us, just dreaming about what that would be. She had plans about, what it would look like for us, about getting jobs, and for all this stuff that this is just completely out of the norm. And so the whole time, I'm just trying to play devil's advocate and, just say, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? What about this? Just to see, how much she had really thought this out. But it became evident to me that this was not only something that she had thought out, this was something that God had really impressed on her heart. And so I couldn't have been more happy. And so after, playing devil's advocate for quite a while, I said, well, I've really been feeling like this for the past 4 weeks. And of course, she's like, well, why haven't you shared that with me? And so we went through that whole thing. But really, that was the moment for me when I really knew that God had something bigger for us in Chicago than what we had been doing. And so that's more of the story. And I couldn't put that all into words in our support letter, so I apologize for that. But I'm glad that you took some time to listen to this video. I'm sorry for the length of it. I meant it to be short, but I do apologize that it did take a while to get this all out. But I felt like this was a story that I had to share with people who would be considering supporting me, because honestly, when I tell this story, it gives me chills, because it's so evident that this is something that God has for us. And to be honest with you, I don't even know the total realm of what God is going to do in Rachel and R's lives through this move to Chicago, and then what we're going to be able to do while we're there. So I appreciate taking this time again, and I hope you have a great day. All right, thanks. Bye.